the movie that was not included on that list, and I've saved it for the end because shame on you, NBC Sports. Shame on you for not including what's possibly the greatest sports movie of all time. And I'm not going to say that it is, but it has to be considered. And that is the movie. Are you ready, big dog?
I'm ready.
Did I even tell you what we're doing?
No.
Welcome to Kansas QB, a podcast about growing up in rural Kansas, hosted by two former high school quarterbacks. And now, here are your manly hosts, Steve Jewell and Tyler Martin.
Yeehaw!
Ride 'em, cowboy!
Growing up in the cornfields of the Sunflower State, we were inseparable. Brothers from different mothers who also happen to be sisters. Our moms, not us. Decades later, he's in Iowa, and I'm in Missouri, but we'll always have Kansas, and we'll always be the QB. Hi, folks, and welcome to the show. I'm Steve. He's Tyler, and today's episode is entitled Sports Cinema. Hey, Tyler, I still intend to ask you about Grandview's 2023 outlook. However, Mike Hubble must be addressed. Darth Ted is one of our most dedicated listeners, and so when we ask questions during the show, he does his best to answer. We asked in a Patrons-only episode last week what they like to do for exercise. He answered that one. Then you said then you said that we value our patrons' opinion and wondered if they had any questions or topics that they may want to hear or have us discuss. He answered that as well. So, Tyler, let me ask you, since you're on the phone, you're not here, let me spell that out to you audibly. Which would you like to address today? The weight loss question or the random questions?
Well, we're going to talk about the weight loss QBs Against Humanity challenge coming up to give updates on the next Patreon-only subscription side of things. So let's handle the random questions.
I like it, and I like how it's QBs against humanity, not obesity. We're against everybody, not just fat cells, everybody.
Maybe not games against humanity, QBs against humanity, games against obesity. Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, you're right.
That's right. All right, so here's some of the questions that Mike had asked us, and again, this was on our Patreon-only site on Patreon, and so no one else has sent these questions, so I'll just ask them, and we'll respond to them. The first question that Mike had asked was, he said, I'd like to, the first one's here. He said, when SJCS started playing in 1999, so I guess this is more of a me question, where were the home games played up until SJCS's football field was added? Were they all road games? But actually, Tyler, I think you can answer this question because I think you know, even though you guys
played at Hyde Park.
We did.
Yeah.
At the same place where you and I ran a mile for fun, the YMCA mile. Yeah. Which we talked, Tyler, about how you wore a St. Joe Christian jersey or shirt under your jersey when you played in high school. And I did also. It was the blue one, not St. Joe Christian, but the blue Midway one that had the state championships on it. I'd cut it off underneath the nipple line. I wore that one. But the other one that I wore, I had two that I would wear. I'd either wear the Midway one or I would wear the Mile Fun Run T-shirts that we got from that mile that we ran at Hyde Park. And I've been in St. Joe for a while now, Tyler, and I don't think they do that anymore. But we ran a mile there, and then later on, I played high school football there. So baseball park's good for more than just baseball.
Yes. Because I'm trying to think which field. I think I even remember which field you played on, but.
All right, let's hear it. What's your guess?
I don't know the number of it, but it was just to the, how are my directions? When you pulled in, it was kind of down to the southeast. Is that correct?
It was actually not, but fine guess. It was actually the northernmost park. It's Hyde 6. It's the one that Benton High School here in town plays their high school baseball on. So how we ended up in that field, I mean, I would have thought we would end up at a different one. But actually at the time, the guy that was in charge of Parks and Rec actually had a kid at our school. And so I think he probably just made the decision that, hey, this is the biggest one and the best place to put it. And so that's where we were. And my dad used to talk about
it was
go ahead.
The farthest north field, but you came in from, didn't you come in from like the northwest side and you parked and then walked across that direction?
Yes, you could go. You had to walk
Yes.
across the baseball
Okay.
field. You come in on the north side,
Yeah.
which actually, Tyler,
Yeah.
you haven't been here in a while. They have a cool splash pad down there now, and they've really taken great
nice.
care of those fields. And that's where my son plays his baseball, is that area. But yeah, we played in a baseball outfield. So I was joking with Coach McDonald, is our baseball coach here at St. Joe Christian. And he takes, whenever we have a home baseball game, he takes the day off from school, and he's out there, he's painting lines, and he's just like getting everything ready to go for the game. And he always looks a little bit tired by the time games start. And I said, you know what? This reminds me of when my dad used to get ready for our home games at St. Joe Christian when I played, because he would start at like 7:30 in the morning. He had to set up goalposts. He had to set up a scoreboard.
Yes.
He had to set up a scaffolding for our scorekeepers and our announcer. And he had to set up bleachers. Like, he did all of that himself. He would pull all that stuff to the field. And by the time the game started, he was so worn out that he didn't even really like home games all that much. He preferred to be on the road. But we did play home games, my couple, to answer your question, and it was at Hyde Park 6. Now, in 1999, as you said, those games were all away, except for we did play, I think, one home game at Union Star or something like that, potentially in 99. But yes, in 2000 and 2001, we played all at Hyde 6. So that's a good question. Good question. Question number 2, Tyler. Question number 2. He said, I'd like to hear more about the first days in college, especially at Northwest, the anxiety, fear, the what the heck am I doing here kind of thing. So he wants your opinion. So I'm gonna give your recollections. I'm gonna give mine really quickly and see how they line up with yours, because your sports situation would have been different. But I know that I basically had 2 thoughts. The first one was I felt unsettled, like I had no place to hide. Like there, you know, because you come from home where you got kind of a home base. And I got there, I was like, I don't really have a home base where I can just go and be by myself. And people assume I'm an extrovert. I'm really, at heart, an introvert. I like to have a place to recharge away from people. And I could not find that place, because even in the dorms, there was people there I didn't know that would invade my room at any time. And, you know, having a dad that was so, like, large and in charge and not afraid of conflict, you know, he always just kind of settled everything for me. And so the fact that now I was on my own, I kind of felt like I had no place to hide. And then number 2, Tyler, I realized very quickly, and I'm interested to hear if maybe you had the same experience, that everyone just wanted to talk, but nobody wanted to listen. And so what I did is I just looked for various places to hide for the first 2 weeks and then I noticed that people are more normal after that. But the first 2 weeks, and it was every year was that way. Like, whenever a new freshman came in, I just ignored them and tried to stay away from them for 2 weeks, because they just want to tell you all about the great things that they did. And I was the same way. We're all selfish, you know, but it's like, that's not a very good conversation. But sports-wise, I didn't do anything with basketball until, you know, basketball season got a lot closer. So I didn't really have any athletic responsibilities. You, however, would have strolled right in that first day. And you talked about how you had a little homesickness when you first got there. But you said that basically you rolled right into practice, and that was before school even started.
Yeah. So we got there 3 weeks before school started, and the only people on campus at that point were the other fall sports, and we even got there before, like volleyball and soccer and cross country. Like, we were there, but we were the first ones there. I think soccer and volleyball were the next ones there. So the dorms were really super empty, and back then you could still have 2-a-days. So we were right away very, very busy with football and meetings and team building exercises, and they kept us going just with football related stuff. We didn't have a ton of downtime. You talk about everybody wanting to talk about themselves. That's true. Myself, coming from a smaller school than everybody else, I wasn't as keen to just throw it out there that, hey, I played 8-man football, and then get looked down upon. So in the early days, before I found my footing and talked a lot, I let a lot of my actions do a lot of my talking early on, and kind of found out that, I'm a little bit smaller, maybe not as big, don't lift as many weights, but with my speed, and I was competitive enough that I football wise, I fit in okay from the beginning. And then socially, once this time school rolled around and people started showing up, it felt a lot more comfortable, because we'd been there and knew what these other freshmen were going through already. So my homesickness didn't really kick in until we'd been there probably a month or so. And then the first time I went home is when it really kicked in. We were so busy, and that's kind of how we try to keep our freshmen so busy right now, that we don't give them a whole lot of time to get in trouble or get overwhelmed, or we just keep them going and keep them patted on the back, and before you know it, hey, we're halfway through the semester.
So what was that like in your first practice that actually had pads on? Did you feel kind of like, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to fit in here? Were you a little nervous, or after you saw everybody in shorts, you're like, oh, I can compete here?
It was a little bit. It was eye-opening as we got there the first day to do physicals. I'm like, wow, he's bigger. Wow, he's bigger. And we had like the transfers coming at the same time. So there's a couple of like 22-year-old defensive backs that were 6'2", 215 pounds. And I'm like, holy cow. Maybe in over my skis a little bit here. But once we got the pads on and people kind of realized that I wasn't just going to back down and that I was going to take it to them and try to hold my own and try to earn a spot, then football just became football. Now, it was a little more different dealing with 3 extra people on the field and playing a position that I really hadn't played that far away from the ball. But once that stuff started to figure itself out and make more sense, I mean, I think it took a good 2 weeks before I felt comfortable, like in scrimmages, or I felt comfortable trying to be vocal and not just let only my pads, or, what do they need me to do to be successful, and what do I need to do to get better?
Yeah, and so that's an interesting topic I'm sure Mike would be interested in hearing about, because being an 8-man football player, having been a quarterback, Kansas QB, and having played on the defensive side, kind of a quasi linebacker corner position, I'm guessing.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden you are being put in an 11-man situation. And we talked about everything that at this point that you would have known about 11-man football would have come from watching football on TV and playing Tecmo Super Bowl. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, what was the strategy hard to adjust to? But did you have enough like variety of coverages in high school that it kind of all translated?
No, it wasn't so much the strategy or even understanding what it was. It was more like moving to an 11-man terminology, moving to, like, I didn't know, okay, so if we're going to be in an eagle front or we're going to be a cat front, they're both 40 fronts, but one's more of an over, one's more of an under front. I didn't know what that stuff meant.
Right.
So it was kind of going back to the very basics of Northwest, because a lot of coaches do very similar things, but they all kind of call it a little bit different here and there. So adjusting to what this meant, and then if we tag this onto a call, how does that change where my eyes need to go? And that's always been something that because it was a lot more foreign to me to grasp it coming out of 8-man going to 11. That's one thing that I really try to do now, is explain the why and make sure everybody understands not only what we're trying to tell them to do, but why and how this fits in before we can move on. So it's really hard to play fast when you aren't 100% sure of what you're supposed to do.
Yes, and that's something, if I've heard anything from listening to sports talk radio over the years with the NFL game, that's what a lot of coaches are trying to do now, is rather than load their guys down with reads, they want them to play fast. So they want them to have as little to think through as possible so they can play fast. So that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so last question from Mike was, Steve, from your college days, I'd enjoy hearing more about the competition. Was it better than expected? Where did the players in your college team originate from? What about the other teams? And so he's asking me that question because you played it at a very high Division II level, the best Division II program in the nation. If not the best Division II program in the nation, one of the top 2 or 3. And I don't care who you are. I don't think you could argue any lower than that for Northwest football, especially back when you played. And, whereas me, I went to an above average NCCAA Division II program, non-scholarship. And when we played Northwest, we lost by 40, 34, like it was by a lot. And so, here we're a smaller, level.
That was also that the basketball program at Northwest was at that time and still perennially at the top 5 to top 2 to top 1 in the country.
Sure.
So
yes, and we caught them on a bad night when we played them the first time when you were there. But we played them twice. We played Mo West twice, here in St. Joe.
Yep.
2 good D2 programs. We played Incarnate Word D2 program. We played NAIA high-ranked teams like Oklahoma, OBU, Oklahoma Baptist University. We still play. If you go look at MCC's schedule, they'll still try to get in those really good teams because you guys will pay us to come play, and then we can buy things because we don't have scholarships, right? I didn't know what to expect at all coming into it. I just knew that I was going to try my hardest because that's what I did. I wasn't worried about not making the team because they didn't have enough finesse. Most coaches like a guy that's going to try to get every rebound and play good defense, and then the fact that I could shoot, I knew that was going to help me out. And so I just came in with an attitude of I don't care if I'm the last guy on the bench. I'm gonna make this team, and eventually I'm gonna play. Well, what I found out, Mike, was that it's kind of like go from junior high to high school, kind of that step up. It was very similar from high school, being a small Class 1 school. It's like the next step up from that was what my college experience was. Whereas I think, Tyler, for you, it was probably it was a very big step up. You're talking about those transfers, those 22-year-old men coming in at 6'2", 215, and having to kind of find your way there. Whereas for me, it was like, yeah, were the guys taller? Yeah, but why do you play NCCAA Division II basketball instead of NCAA Division II basketball? Well, what I discovered was one of two things. One, either you were shorter than what you should be for your position, or two, you're less athletic than you should be for your position. I think the shooting was just as good, or at least comparable, but it was your posts that are 6'9", 6'10" at the Division II level. They're 6'4", 6'5" at the NCCAA Division II level. So those guys have some skills, but they just can't compete against a 6'9" guy in the post, or like in our point guard's case, he was 5'8". He could jump off 2 feet and dunk with 2 hands, but he was 5'8", and so he wasn't going to make it anywhere else. But he asked where those players came from. Well, it was very interesting. In Manhattan Christian College was not that great. We were above average. We'd won the NCCAA Division II, second level national championship in '96. So again, that's going down even a half step farther from what we normally would play. But above average, we were okay. We were pretty good. We had some good players that scored a lot of points. But it was my senior year in high school that these 4 guys from these schools in Kansas that had played against one another. One of them was from Riley County, which is Manhattan high school over there by Manhattan. A guy from Seaman, which is a Topeka school, and 2 guys from Seaman, Topeka, and then 1 guy from Jeff West. They all played against each other. They liked each other, and they got together. I don't know when. I don't remember the story exactly when they decided on this, but they just got to know one another from playing each other at the same level of was that Class 3, Class 4 in Kansas, and decided, you know what, let's go to this Christian school and dominate. And it's funny because they kind of did. That squad, they were my freshman and sophomore year. The 2 posts from Jeff West and Seaman, they were all Americans at our level. That point guard was really good, and then the other guy was a 6'4" shooting guard. And once we added in a 6'8" former McDonald's All-American from Oklahoma that had gone and played D1 and gotten hurt and kind of been out for a couple years and came back in with his knee injury and tried to still play with us. That was a really good team. We're ranked number 2 in the nation, and I would say if that group of 5, and I was the 6th man off that team as a sophomore, if we would come back and played a 6A high school team, we would beat them probably just as badly as Northwest beat us. So like I said, it was a step up. But having said that, some of the teams in our conference, or our conference is actually pretty good, but some of the teams we played against, we would play.
That was the team that I came down and watched.
Did you come down and see it? Well, the Northwest game, those guys had all graduated.
No. I came to Manhattan and watched.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you saw how that team, whenever we'd warm up, I was the only one on the team that couldn't dunk during warm-ups. Like everyone's throwing it down frontwards, backwards. The 6'8" guy barely jumps and he dunks it, and the 5'8" point guard's dunking it, and then I'll step back, shoot the J, man. Look at that, and hold my fall through, kind of spin around, try to look cool. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, those teams were really good. And then you'd play a team, you're like, wow, my high school team could have beat these guys. So like I said, it was a mixed bag. But once you got to the top level of the NCCAA Division II, those teams could be pretty good. And so, nothing to be embarrassed about. I had actually K-State over there. I remember some of my friends over there at the rec. So like the football guys are like, oh well, shoot, we got rec teams here at the K-State that could beat your college team. I was like, I don't know, because we went over with probably not our top 5, but probably our 3 of our top 5, and then some of our bench players and a couple other guys we knew. We went there and we were 1 game away from the championship game, and that was because they had 3 guys that had played D2 on the team that beat us, and they hit this like half court shot to beat us. So I mean, we're pretty good. So nothing to be embarrassed about. Having played at that level, but also, I mean, we got spanked when we played really high competition. So hey, Mike, I hope that answers your question. We'd spent a little more time on that than I intended, and we've got a lot to do here coming up, Tyler. But I think we're at the halfway point. We need to go right to broken news. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Broken news.
As we like to say, if it ain't broken, it ain't news. Breaking news is for tryhards, and we no longer have the stamina for that kind of effort. So we take stories that have already been broken and share them with the folks at home. Have you heard about this, Tyler? According to NBCSports.com, there are 25 sports movies that stand out above and beyond all the rest.
Yeah, barely did I get to touch this list. As you can't tell, I'm on the phone. We're a little busy. I'm driving to a track meet right now. And I looked at it a little bit. I saw enough of it to say that I don't agree with it. So I was just going to wait and see what you pulled out.
Yes, and so the list, actually, it had 25. I decided, Tyler, to try and keep with our theme of like growing up. I didn't count any of the movies they had on the list more recent than 2002.
Yes.
So as I tell you some of these movies, now these would have been their top movies from prior to 2002. However, if we did the whole 25 list and they had that same restriction, I think some of the movies that we think, wow, it's missing on this list, they probably would have included instead of some of the more recent movies. But still, Tyler, we don't have to give them a pass because they still left them off the list of those that we have left over. So you don't have to give a pass.
Okay.
So we'll go down through this list here, and since you're on the phone, and I don't want you looking at your phone and crashing and dying, especially, I mean, we would still publish the episode because we have certain obligations, but still, that would scar some people.
I get it.
Yeah. So I'll read them out here. Again, these are the ones from this list, and then when we get to the things we remember section, we'll talk about some things that they missed and, ones that were impactful for us. Does that sound good?
Sounds like a winner to me.
All right, these are not in any particular order. These are just the top ones that they could group up and pick at random, and they'd make the list. The first one on their list here, 1996, a little movie called Space Jam. Tyler, do we even need to tell people about this? People should know about this.
If these movies make our list, we will talk about them again. However, everybody knows Space Jam, and thank goodness Space Jam 2 is not in our wheelhouse, so we don't even have to think about that one.
Did you see it? Was it any good?
No. Yes, I saw it. No, wasn't good.
It wasn't as good as the first one. Well,
No.
That's too bad. I hoped it would be good. Well, I'm going to watch it one of these days. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
Next one, 1993, The Sandlot.
This we will talk about again. That was. Can we save this till things we remember? Because I've got stuff to say about Sandlot.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, but what you're saying is you're not mad at NBC Sports for including that one.
Absolutely not. Like, that is quintessential must-have on a top sports movies of all time. Namely because we were like the age of the kids playing baseball in the movie.
Yeah, we talked about Bluey, which is, Ged's QB stamp of approval. And it's beloved in my house because when we first started watching it, Bluey was the same age as JC, and Bingo was the same age as Jayla. So it totally matched. And they thought that I was a lot like the dad, so... Yeah, so you understand why we love Sandlot so much. The next one, 1976. We're going back for this one, Tyler. Rocky, the original.
I feel like those need to be included. I don't know. The first was in 76. When was the last? When was Rocky? Rocky 5 was what, mid-80s, late 80s? By the time that they finally got around to it.
I should probably look that up since Rocky.
With Rocky was early 90s. I mean, it was Don King. It was...
Well, it had
Tommy Gunn, so yeah.
Gunn. It had Tommy, what was his name? Tommy, what's his real name? That was actually a boxer.
Tommy Morrison?
Morrison, yeah. Tommy Morrison. He's a Kansas City guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it came out in 1990, so we were both
okay.
close.
I was going to say, because Rocky 4 was Cold War-ish, and I can change, you can change, we can all change. So we can include the Rocky franchise because we were alive during that. Now, I would also like to say, even though the Apollo, the Creed spinoffs now are what we would say out of our time frame, we're going to lump those in there because they're still to be part of the Rocky franchise, and I like those a lot too. And now my kids like those too.
Yeah, so, I need to see the new one. I haven't seen it. Matter of fact, I never saw the second one. I liked the first one. The first one was good.
I've only seen the first two. I've not seen the third one.
Okay. Next on the list from 2000. Remember the Titans.
This has a special place in my heart as we watched this in the theater the night before the state championship game in Salina, where the championship game was played. So that was the first time that we watched it, went out and we won the next day. And now to this day, it's just such a great, I don't know actually how historically accurate it is with when the team got beat. They did not win the state championship. In fact, Marcellus Casey.
I don't.
He was our team chaplain. He was a tight end for us from Lee Summit, Missouri. His dad was a FCA guy for a while. Then I think he started like a major fatherhood, National Fatherhood Coalition. So I don't know the name of it. Anyways, Celis has been a very dear friend of mine since I was at Northwest, and actually he's now the Chiefs chaplain. His father was on the team that beat the Titans.
Oh.
So whenever he spoke to us, and he was an amazing speaker. He was actually Lawrence Taylor's roommate in college. Amazing speaker with great stories. And he goes, they didn't quite get that story right. So they Disney-fied it to win the championship. But great movie, great flick, good message, a Martin household favorite.
So you're telling me that Mark Martin did a better job of choosing the pre-state championship movie than Jim Leatherman did?
I think that was technically post-state title.
Was that after?
I think we'd already
lost.
I think it was after we'd already gotten beat. We were just hanging out.
I think I'm still scarred from that movie. We won't even say what it was.
Yeah, exactly. I was careful not to say that.
Oh my goodness. 1993, the next one. Rudy.
Not a favorite of mine, to be honest with you.
Neither. Is that okay?
Yes,
I didn't like that movie. I didn't like it.
Another movie that historically not accurate. Rudy Rudiger did not actually, like, that whole story is not true. Great movie if you want to play it out that way, but that wasn't exactly how it went. I liked the
ending. So I basically liked the most flagrantly untrue part. So I liked the end of the movie, but I remember sitting through it, and I was younger, and there was some cursing, some different things that made me uncomfortable as a child. But I just remember thinking, I don't really like this movie very much. But you're supposed to like it because it's the underdog story. Okay, so we'll move on. That one's not making our list, Tyler.
No.
Spoiler alert for everyone else. We just didn't like that one very much. Sorry. Not sorry. 1989, Field of Dreams.
A movie that I remember the VHS being at my grandpa and grandma's house all the time. And I don't remember watching it when we were younger, really. It was around, didn't watch it till a little later in life. But now, hey, I live in Iowa. I'm supposed to count that as the best sports movie of all time.
Yeah. And
I don't see it that way. No. Although I do like a little better story, I think, with the 8 men out and that aspect of the Black Sox. I like that. My mom and dad were not Kevin Costner fans growing up, believe it or not. So he was in it, and I don't think they really approved too much of him. So they didn't get to watch it.
Well, and see, we had the same kind of love-hate relationship with Mr. Costner, and I think it stemmed from the fact that he just made a couple movies right around there that had some objectionable content, and we were very much out on that. And so we couldn't really watch this one. We couldn't really watch that one. So it was like this one was kind of in the middle. It was kind of a family movie. James Earl Jones was in it. I love the want to have a catch, like that whole father and son thing. Love that.
Ray Liotta. Yeah, it's good.
That part was great. But this is not one of my classics either. I did like this movie though. It's a great movie. You got to make a cut somewhere, and this one didn't make my cut.
It doesn't make my cut of sports movies. However, the Field of Dreams area in Dyersville is cool, and I like the fact that they're playing major league games there now once a summer.
That's cool.
And I'm excited for if the Royals ever get chosen to play there.
You could go.
We still live in Iowa. I would love to go because it's a cool spot, and it's a really pretty part of Iowa, the northeast corner up by Dubuque.
Speaking of baseball, A League of Their Own, 1992. Tyler, how'd you feel about Gina Davis and Tom Hanks and Madonna and what's her name? The lady that was the comedian. Forgot her name.
Oh, that had her show, Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell. Yeah. What do you think about that?
That's making my list of all-time great movies.
See, you would think that, the ladies, us being big testosterone kind of guys, we wouldn't. I love this movie. I remember watching this and thinking that was a really good movie.
Yes, it is one of my favorite sports movies now to watch because Maddie likes to watch it. She thinks it's funny. She's a softball player. There's still some one-liners that I really, really like. The way that Tom Hanks comes around from being the crotchety old drunk to, caring about the team and kind of pulling his life back together with them. And Gina Davis does a great job in the role that she plays. So, yes, I'm a big fan.
Oh, yeah. That one, again, it doesn't make my top list, but it'd be closer to that cut line for me even than Field of Dreams. 1980?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Caddyshack. Is that a sports movie? I mean, I know there's golf in it, but this is not my cup of tea, Tyler.
It's hard for me to label it as a sports movie, so I wouldn't put it on my top sports movies of all time. There's some one-liners in it that I think are incredible. Bill Murray's kind of funny. Chevy Chase
and Bill Murray. It should be good. So there is some good stuff, yeah.
Yes, I'm not sure. It's hard to. I can't really put it as my favorite sports movie of all time if there's zero chance that I could sit down and watch it with my kids. And that is not a movie that we will be watching together anytime soon.
Speaking of movies that you could watch together, though, 1997. And this one's probably going to bother you a little bit, Tyler, I'm guessing. Though I will say, we did like this movie. Even though it came out when we were, in 6th, 7th grade?
Yeah.
And I liked it probably more than you did because Brian, my little brother Brian, loved these movies. And today, Tyler, there has been so many spin-offs of this same concept and this exact, the company that made this movie continues to make movies with the same stuff in it. My son Jackson, and my daughter's not so much, but Jackson, he had a phase where he loved all the movies made by these people. But 1997, Air Bud.
No, I am 100% out on Air Bud.
I figured. I liked it. Obviously the basketball was bad. It's kind of like if you had my wife's, top 100 sports movies of all time, she just might include High School Musical, and that for me would be, sacrilegious in every way possible. Kind of along the same lines, I would be tempted to add Air Bud just because I enjoyed it, even though not great basketball. But they had it on the list. 92, we're going to skip this one, The Mighty Ducks, because I feel that's going to come back up later. Just like a good hot dog. Any Given Sunday, 1999. I do like the band Taking Back Sunday, but I did not ever I've never even seen this movie, Any Given Sunday. Again, not a family show.
Yeah, not a family show. I think it was one of there'd been, I think, a lapse in people trying to make an actual sports movie or a movie about sports. And this was like can we make an edgy one? Can we make an R-rated sports movie and see if people will like it? And a lot of people did like it.
Listen to this. These are the people that are in this movie. Again, I know. I remember seeing a part of it, but Al Pacino, Charlton Heston. I mean, you can stop right there. Those are two of the best. James Wood. Now, those are the old guys. Dennis Quaid, Cameron Diaz, Aaron Eckhart, LL Cool J, and Jamie Foxx. I mean,
yes,
that's crazy.
So there was a lot of
Jim Brown was in it. Lawrence Taylor was in it.
A lot of bad sports moments in the movie, a lot of overacting to try to portray people, a lot of seediness going on. It would probably be better suited to try to put it on a list of best football movies so you could limit the other ones, but I'm not putting this anywhere near the top of my favorite sports movies.
No. As a matter of fact, there's the opposite kind of sports movie here in just a second that totally makes my list that I loved way more. But first, Blue Crush, 2002. Did you ever watch that one? Surfing?
No.
I mean,
surfing one? Nope, didn't. I think a better message, but no.
Probably. But this one here, Tyler, football movie, the opposite of edgy, unless you consider just girls playing football super edgy. But Little Giants, 1994. This is kind of our jam. It was like the Sandlot of football, right?
This is where when we talk about what we need to have on our list, this movie is firmly in the mold of that, with the time it came about, how old we were when it was out, the fact that we wanted to be on those teams and play, and we were putting on youth pads at that time and running around and playing. You had Becky the Icebox Taylor, which could have been Becky the Icebox Martin. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was a fun movie that we thought was actually realistic.
We did.
The things we remember.
We are getting older. We've already forgotten more than we ever knew, but some memories still cling to our brain parts, like the Monstars to Michael Jordan in the first half of their big game. Tyler, we've come up with a list, and this list includes memories from our time growing up in Kansas. Let's see just how well we can remember. In the Broken News segment, we learned that certain individuals seem to think some sports movies are better than others. Tyler, what are some of your favorites of all time? And we can repeat some ones we already mentioned, but also keeping in mind that we are only including those that came out prior to our graduation day.
Yes. So I don't think that we can go very far in this list. Maybe I'm just going to start it with The Sandlot, just because maybe this should land higher than the first one we mentioned. I don't know. We're truly doing a rundown of top to bottom. But this one, to me, we played in what could be described as a sandlot growing up in Bendina. So that kind of fit. I wanted to be Benny the Jet so bad and be the fast guy. We also felt like we watched this movie at Kyle's house every time we went to his house.
And ours too. And it's interesting because my dad was pretty good at curating what we saw, and this one had, there's just a couple questionable moments. I haven't shared this one with my son yet, but I intend to very soon. But it was just that good. It was that good that you had to watch it.
Yes. Go ahead. It was one of the ones that there was a story that went along with it, but it still was sports centric. They were playing baseball. There was some cool stuff that we tried to get the person to put his hand up and I'll just hit it to you. There was like everything. I mean, and on top of it, you had Wendy Peppercorn. Come on.
Wendy Peppercorn. Yeah. For Sandlot, for me, I thought too, just the fact that, like you said, we had our own Sandlot at the Bendina Park, and how we would go up there and do the same game of workup that they would play.
Yes.
We tried to play that same game with our neighborhood kids, and we did it, and it was fun. Here's the one for me, Tyler. I'll let you give me one. Space Jam, we already talked about. Loved Michael Jordan. I thought he was an actor growing up. We also loved Bugs Bunny at that time, and so it was just the original Space Jam was the perfect melding of everything. My wife loves that movie. I love that movie. It's a classic. How about this one? How did you feel about Rookie of the Year?
Pitcher's got a big butt.
Also not allowed to watch this one at my house, but I saw it other places and just was fascinated by the concept. All of us wanted to play in the big leagues.
It was interesting. It was a comedy, but again, it was still about baseball. It was still, maybe our parents didn't feel that it was completely family wholesome, to say it that way, but it was still a feel-good sports movie aimed at children that was watchable.
That's right. Another one, Mighty Ducks, could kind of go along those same lines as Little Giants, Sandlot. It was basically those movies for hockey. And we've talked about before in our hockey episode how much we love the Mighty Ducks and how we kind of tried to act that movie out up at the park with our rollerblades, which we found out are actually inline skates. But so the Mighty Ducks, Knuckle Puck, that was a huge part of our. Hang on, we got a call coming in real fast, Tyler. Let's see who this could be. A tip on my truck. Hello, welcome to the Kansas QB podcast. Any tips on my truck by any chance?
No tips.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my brother Kevin. Tyler, say hi to Kevin. You still there, Tyler?
I am still here. Did you find your truck?
No, he didn't. Sorry, I forgot to merge the call. Kevin called in because I wanted to get his ideas here. Kevin, actually I didn't. He called completely random. But Kevin, you need to choose between these movies, okay? Because we mentioned them all, but we didn't rank them. Your number one favorite out of these: The Sandlot, Little Giants, The Mighty Ducks.
Ooh. I'm going to say, if I can only pick one, Little Giants, because football is better than baseball and hockey.
Boy.
That's not bad reasoning on that part. Like when you phrased it and when you said it that way, Steve, I'm like, if you posed this to me in front of my kids, I would be forced to say Little Giants.
All right. So next question, Kevin, since we still got you on the line. So now let's switch to baseball so that you don't have the football excuse. So again, The Sandlot, Angels in the Outfield, Rookie of the Year.
It's been really long since I've seen any of them except for The Sandlot. I saw that again recently, so I'm going to have to go with The Sandlot.
Tyler, what's your take on it? Tyler, I want you to put those three in order. Angels in the Outfield is kind of more me and Becky, I think, than it was you. But you got Angels in the Outfield, The Sandlot, Rookie of the Year. Give me a 1, 2, and 3.
If I'm going to rank them, it's Sandlot 1. And here's where I'm going to go Angels in the Outfield 2 and then Rookie of the Year.
Ooh.
I've watched Rookie of the Year recently, and by recently I mean in the last year. We kind of go through that phase of, hey, if you guys want to watch a movie now, we're only watching sports movies.
Nice.
So we've seen Rookie of the Year. Really not as good as I remember it. So
Don't tell me that.
I can only imagine how bad Angels in the Outfield is, but since I have not seen it, I do have recency bias against
Now, I will
Rookie of the
say,
Year, so-
if you're talking about talented actors, like Nick Nolte versus Danny Glover, I think Danny Glover's going to win that one. So it might be Angels in the Outfield wasn't that bad. I don't know. Plus, don't
That's
you have Gordon Love Hewitt, what's not Gordon Love Hewitt? What's the guy? He's like a big actor now, but he was the boy in that one.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, if it's not Gordon Love Hewitt, it's someone who looks
Something like
exactly
that.
like him.
Yeah, something like that.
So I totally agree with both of you on the ranking and the reasons for that. The acting. Danny Glover, and then what was the?
You also had Doc from Back to the Future.
Emmett.
I don't actually know his name.
Yeah, well, Emmett Brown is all that matters.
Emmett Brown. Okay, that's
But
fine.
yeah, which by the way, he was on the most recent. Go ahead.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, he's just on The Mandalorian with Jack Black. I'm like, I don't care if people think that this episode is a little on the cheesy side. It had Doc Brown and Jack Black. It was amazing. Anyway, that's off topic.
It was the lowest rated episode.
You're the lowest rated episode. So. Sorry. Last question, Kevin, before, or actually I have 2 more questions for both of you. Since we're at the end of this episode, we got to shut this thing down soon. I felt like another one that was kind of along the same lines of the time frame so we enjoyed it as kids. That had some good actors that wasn't mentioned on the list. I don't know. I liked Cool Runnings. What about you guys?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Cool Runnings was amazing. John Candy, classic underdog story. Yes, Cool Runnings. I don't even know what list you're talking about, but the Cool Runnings isn't on it. Not as great of a list.
I liked it because it dealt with the sprinters of Jamaica to begin with, and I've always been a fan of Jamaican sprinters. It was also a fun. You had Darius, and you had Sanka, and you had the funny guy, and you had there were some good lines in that too.
Dead yet?
We kind of had our roles of the 4 of us who could be which one personality wise, which worked a little bit. And then to me, those, when you put the ones we've talked about, as in Sandlot, Little Giants, Cool Runnings, and that vein of show where it's more, there's sports in it, but it was family centric, not necessarily all about it, and it wasn't aimed at older audiences. Those were the ones that we were allowed, Mighty Ducks, those were the ones that we were allowed to watch a lot. And maybe not all the time, but that's kind of what, it wasn't like we were watching Major League, and it wasn't like we were watching, now, I do think Major League is really funny now, but...
Yeah, we're not allowed to watch that one. I would not put it on my list just because, again, that was just not appropriate. Of course, my wife grew up watching it. Different strokes, different folks, and all that.
Yeah.
Just to make a quick nod to the folks that came before us, because we do have some listeners that are a little older than us. I felt like we need to give honorable mention. Like, if we're going back to, black and white, or even just something, another one from the 70s, I had kind of an honorable mention. Brian's song, I remember watching that one. It was really sad, but I really liked it. I also Pride of the Yankees with Gary Cooper and that whole last little speech doing the Lou Gehrig thing, and then the original Burt Reynolds, The Longest Yard. I feel like those 3 need to be mentioned because those are some of my favorite, from some older
classics.
Do you have an older classic, Tyler? That would
maybe not. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna ask me. Can you consider Far Lap a sports movie? It was about horse racing. Yeah, that would be a sports movie that we watched. But yeah, Chariots of Fire or something along those lines. We just didn't watch those all the time like we did. Like for us, it would have been like the big Nike show or Michael Jordan Come Fly With Me. Not really movies or cinematic stuff, but yeah.
And that brings us to the last thing we need to mention before we close this episode up. It's gotten a little bit long, but it needs to be mentioned. Tyler, the movie that was not included on that list, and I've saved it for the end because shame on you, NBC Sports. Shame on you for not including what's possibly the greatest sports movie of all time. And I'm not going to say that it is, but it has to be considered. And that is the movie Gene Hackman, Hoosiers.
That I knew we were going to talk about this at the end, and to me, Hoosiers is the best sports movie of our childhood era growing up.
I wouldn't argue with you. That's a great movie. How did it get left
And
off the list?
I don't think Becky would argue with it. I don't even know. Like, my kids have seen it. It's funny we're talking about this now. So Sunday at church, we were talking about being the champion, and the montage shown for Easter was actually a whole bunch of cut-up sports movies. And I mean, they range from when we were little to way before to what's going on now. And every time they come on, it was fun because Case would be like, oh, that's Sandlot. Oh, that's Hoosiers. Oh, that's
Nice.
Space Jam. Oh, that's. So they knew a bunch of them, but there were some that were on there. I'm like, wow, I don't want to have to explain what this movie was to my kids that they just saw at church.
Come on, church.
Yeah, it was good. So Hoosiers is definitely, for me, the number one sports movie of our, or I shouldn't say the definite number one. It's the most sports-centric good sports movie. Is that fair?
Kevin, you agree?
Yes, I do think that Hoosiers was a fantastic movie. Had some fantastic actors, although I know for a fact I could not show that to my kids and expect them to watch it the entire time.
Not yet.
I tried to watch that again recently, and it's
a little slower.
A little bit slow.
But the basketball's so good. Well, that does it for things we remember. As we reach the music montage where the luckless underdog finally starts to show some prowess in every underdog sports movie script of life, we are just thrilled that we remembered something. Kansas QB is a production of the Jewel Media Podcasting Network. And before we go, we want to thank Tracy of Tracy Lindley Voiceovers for the way too professional audio. And of course, I would like to thank Tyler and Kevin for clearing time in their busy schedules to talk about sports cinema.
If you guys feel that we've left something glaringly obvious off, please get in touch with us and we will make things right next time.
Or at least make fun of you for having it completely wrong. Well, that's enough of that. For Tyler and one of the most fantastic brothers that I have, I'm Steve, wishing you big fun in your small town. Solo dancing, baby. Were you dancing, Tyler and Kevin? Were you dancing?
I was, actually, as I normally am when I'm on the phone for this. People think it's funny when I'm driving, but I was dancing.
It's hilarious. Kevin, were you dancing?
You will never know.
I will never know.